Switch 2.
Yes.
Speaking of Japan, Switch 2 sales are surging in Japan as consumers race to purchase the console before its upcoming price increase, with the system moving an impressive 217,922 units in a single week, according to Famitsu charts. The surge surpasses the previous 2-week total and highlights the massive demand still surrounding Nintendo's newest hardware. Meanwhile, Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream, continues to dominate the run at the top of the charts with nearly 100,000 additional units in Japan, while Pokemon Pokopia officially crosses the 1 million sales milestone on Switch 2 in Japan. Even with the next generation hardware taking center stage, the original Nintendo Switch family remains remarkably strong in Japan as well, continuing to outperform PlayStation 5 hardware by a significant margin.
And they said there was
the Switch Lite over there is selling incredibly well over there, which is crazy.
They said they're on the track of being PS2 if it keeps up like this.
Well, it's they're launching the system in India in a couple weeks, in August, I think, actually. So
yeah,
that's just a new market for the Switch 1 to be in. They're launching the Switch 1 in India, not Switch 2. So
there's so many games that's on there. Yeah.
Yeah,
if it's reasonable price and it does like numbers, I could see it being PlayStation 2 with ease.
Yeah, I think it's going to eventually, right? I truly think it's going to. I just think it's a matter of when, not if. Especially if they're still manufacturing it and launching it in new territories. Like, it's a no-brainer at this point. That thing, if it has as long of a tail as PlayStation 2 did, right?
Yeah.
In these secondary markets, tertiary markets like India and Brazil and other South American countries, like, you could almost see it being. Remember the big story that up until like the PS2 became the biggest console in Brazil, like Sega Genesis was like the biggest console there until like 2010, and just because it was cheap and cheap enough for them to import and have, and there's like a huge Sega community down there. It's crazy. But like, if you can get the Switch in the door down there at a somewhat reasonable price in these markets, like, you could easily see it selling 175 million units, 180 million.
I wonder if they're doing the OLED, or is it just...
I don't know. It just said the Switch 1 is launching there. So maybe, because
that
I
would
don't
just
know
make
how
sense.
much variety you give them, right? Like, I don't know how. Also, you want the console to be as cheap as possible. So I wonder if it's just the regular Switch 1 and then Switch Lite, but we'll see, I guess. By the way, I want to say the Switch Lite, or the Switch 1 OLED model, is still like the most comfortable out of any of the Switch systems, I think, to hold.
When holding it.
Yeah. I still think it's the most comfortable out of all of them. Like, it's just, it's the right, like, the size feels nice. The weight of it feels nice. I still think the Switch 2 is too big in my, like, to be a comfortably held handheld system. I still obviously play it because I have to, but I still think the OLED Switch 1 is the best feeling of all of the Switches out there.
Yeah,
yeah, mine's still plugged in. It's sitting right there. So I was going to do something around the launch of Switch 2, but I didn't, and I never unhooked it. And then I started putting a bunch of indie games and retro games on it because it doesn't need the power. All right.